Time to get you caught up on your latest news and notes around the NFL, and we begin things out west where the injury woes continue to build for the San Francisco 49ers. First, Christian McCaffrey will plan to see a specialist in Germany about his lingering Achilles tendonitis issue. McCaffrey has already missed the first 3 games of the season and isn't eligible to come off the IR until week 6. 49ers signal caller Brock Purdy is now also day-to-day with back soreness. Purdy coming off his best game of the season in the Niners' 27-24 loss to the Los Angeles Rams. And we are now joined by CBS Sports NFL writer Ryan Wilson to break down the biggest news and notes from a busy Monday across the NFL. And I like to say when it rains, it pours, Ryan, because the 49ers are already off to a disappointing 1-2 start to their season, and it couldn't get much worse as their injury woes continue to fill up. I want to know, we just got that news about Javon Hargrave potentially missing the season with what he's dealing with. I'm telling you the news about Brock Purdy. Is it time to start panicking? Is it a concern time for the 49ers? So,
Kiana, you are a 49ers fan. You don't need me to sit here. You tell me, is it a cause for concern when no one can play?
I'm a little worried.
You should be a lot worried because it is bad when you have to fly 12 hours to go see a doctor about your tendonitis in the Achilles. That's with Christian McCaffrey. You talked about Javon Hargrave, the fantastic defensive lineman who has a torn tricep. That's not great. I'm not a doctor, but I know enough to know that's not great. And then Brock Purdy, the best player they have left standing. Brandon, you can have some questions about the way he played yesterday, let's be real. But Brock Purdy was running for his life, played really well yesterday. But now that he's banged up, he's day-to-day. So this isn't great. There's a reason they've lost 2 in a row. It has everything to do with the lack of players on the field. It has nothing to do with how good this team has been the last few years under Kyle Shanahan. And I'm very concerned because coming into yesterday, I thought the Cardinals had a chance to make a move. They lost that game, and they're now, everyone's still battling for first place outside of Seattle, but there's no opportunity for the Rams. There's no opportunity for the 49ers to move up because of the injuries, although we saw the Rams sort of out-injury the 49ers in that game yesterday. So they need guys healthy. They need to be able to hold on if they can and find a win somewhere, but it's going to be tough to come by when your best players 5, 6, 7, 8 deep aren't on the field. Yeah, and we're talking on now both sides of the ball for the 49ers. A tough hill to climb for them. But how about we talk about a little bit of positive news, Ryan? What do you got? Out in Carolina's Dave Canales is sticking with Andy Dalton at quarterback for their Week 4 matchup against the Bengals after Dalton tossed 3 touchdowns in the Panthers' first win of the season over the Raiders. Canales saying earlier on Monday, quote, "Andy is our quarterback. He gives us the best chance to win. That's our approach as we get ready to face the Bengals." Some strong words right there. So Ryan, with Canales showing no signs of going back to Bryce Young, the second-year quarterback, anytime soon at least, and trade rumors for Bryce continuing to increase, does Young have any future as of right now in Carolina? No. And if I told you a month ago that you were going to go from San Francisco to Carolina and it was going to be good news, you'd have asked me what could have possibly gone wrong. But here we are, right? And the good news starts with Andy Dalton, almost 37 years old. And I said this last night when we were talking about this. I said, if you told me that Andy Dalton was the first overall pick last year, that's how he played going on the road to Las Vegas and just lighting up that Las Vegas secondary. So you cannot go back to Bryce Young if, knock on wood, Andy Dalton stays healthy. And Andy Dalton, the bubble's going to burst. He's going to come back to earth a little bit. But what we saw from Bryce Young in Week 2 was some of the worst football I would imagine he would tell you he's ever played in his life. Yeah. And it looked like a completely different game when Andy Dalton was out there. So I think the future for Bryce Young is probably going to be somewhere else. The question becomes, when does that happen and what's the compensation going to be? Is it unfair? Yeah, but you're playing in a Show Me Now league, and we have not seen anything in 18 games from Bryce Young to necessitate keeping him on the field. Show Me League, 18 games, and I was looking at that graphic we just saw on the screen. 2 wins across his first 18 games. That's not going to get the job done for the Panthers. But let's talk about one current Panthers quarterback tearing it up to a former Panthers quarterback up in Minnesota. I'm talking Sam Darnold, receiving some good news on Monday as x-rays revealed a knee bruise, no structural damage, meaning he's not expected to miss any time. Darnold, if you recall, torched that Texans defense for 4 touchdowns in that 34-7 win, rather, in Week 3, improving to now 3-0 on the season. So, Ryan,
With a healthy Darnold at quarterback, do you expect the Vikings to keep this hot start going?
Absolutely. And I think one of the takeaways from the first 3 weeks of the season, Kiana, is that fit matters. Sam Darnold was a big deal when he arrived in Carolina. It didn't work for a number of reasons, not all Sam Darnold's fault. He arrives in Minnesota with Kevin O'Connell, who has done a masterful job getting the most out of these quarterbacks, both young and old. And I think Sam Darnold has been the beneficiary of that. Justin Jefferson helps. Jordan Addison helps. TJ Hockenson helps. And also that defense with Brian Flores helps.
Oh, yeah.
And the fact that he's healthy and the fact that he's balling out, and you saw glimpses of him last year in mop-up duty for the 49ers, he is playing like the top 5 pick that he was so many years ago. And the crazy thing is, he's still younger than Joe Burrow. So he has room to grow. And I think the fact that he's healthy is great news because Nick Mullins is back up, and that's a drop-off certainly. But I think this team not only is the best team in the division, they might be one of the best teams in the NFL.
You really blew my mind with that stat, considering he's younger than Joe Burrow.
Yeah.
He's been to so many teams. I know getting that start back with the Jets, he's actually got a date, I believe, in 2 weeks with his former team. But you talk about that division. Up next is going to be a true test as he's facing the Packers out at Lambeau. But Darnold, not the only notable quarterback injury from Monday. X-rays on Justin Herbert's high ankle sprain were negative, as the Chargers will continue to monitor his status ahead of their Week 4 matchup against the Chiefs. Now, Herbert was taken out in the third quarter in that 20-10 loss to the Steelers. LA also losing that 2024 5th overall pick, Joe Alt, which I think is very, very notable. He's gone for several weeks while dealing with an MCL sprain. Derwin James also suspended for a game. Ryan, how should the Chargers maybe approach this big divisional matchup that lies ahead? Because we know it's kind of like Mahomes and co are like that dagger in their side.
First off, I would get a time machine and go back 2 weeks and then take Joe Burrow out when he hurt his ankle the first time. And look, it's unfair to do revisionist history and say maybe he shouldn't have played against the Pittsburgh Steelers. They're not in the division. The game's in the same conference, so it matters a little bit. But he was hobbled going in, and he was questionable up until the moment they decided to play him. And then he comes out, and now it's exacerbated the situation. And oh, by the way, they still lost that game. So the question becomes, Taylor Heineke or Easton Stick, how do you feel about those guys? Bosa left with a hip injury. You talked about Joe Alt, who has been fantastic in the first 2.5 games, left with the knee injury. And to your point, it's Kansas City, and if you can somehow figure out a way to keep that game close and even eke out a win, and hope isn't a plan to get that, then you have your bye week. But it doesn't get any easier because you play at Denver, a division game on the road with a really good defense. You're at Arizona. So part of me wishes they had Jim Harbaugh and company had kept Justin Herbert on the bench last week, but that ship has sailed. So you have to monitor them, and you have to figure out ways to run the ball more effectively. They weren't able to do that last week, and overcome all the injuries and the suspensions in Derwin James that you've already talked about. So they got a lot of work to do and not very much time to figure it out.
Yeah, also some big injury news out in Philly. It's wide receiver Devontae Smith put into concussion protocol after suffering that big hit up high in the fourth quarter, and their win over the Saints. Now his status up in the air for their Week 4 matchup against the Bucs. Eagles already, we know about that offense without A.J. Brown, who's out for at least the next few weeks dealing with that hamstring injury. So, Ryan, how do the Eagles adjust to these mounting injuries on offense?
You're going to have to lean on Jalen Hurts. You're going to have to convince Kellen Moore, the offensive coordinator, to lean into the run more, and that's something he was dinged for when he was in Dallas. A little better job last year in L.A. But now you have Jahan Dotson, who was acquired from Washington because they didn't need him. They didn't think he was worth keeping around. So you have to get the most out of him. They have rookie Johnny Wilson, who's a huge slash. He feels like a Jawan Jennings type in that he's both wide receiver and he can play in the slot if you need him to. He didn't live up to expectations last year at Florida State. He's made some plays in preseason, and he's shown glimpses during the early part of the season. They're going to have to lean on him as well, and of course Dallas Goedert is going to have to take on a bigger role. But I think it starts with Jalen Hurts and his legs. We saw him run a little bit more last week. You got to get the running game involved with Saquon. You have him there, and if you throw him the pass, fingers crossed he catches it. And then
too soon, Ryan.
Too soon. And the defense needs to play like it did last week when they got after Derek Carr and made him look normal for the first time this season.
Yeah, and then we got to talk about the rookie quarterbacks, Caleb Williams and Bo Nix, showing some noticeable improvements in their third career starts. Williams threw his first career touchdown to fellow first-rounder Roma Dunze, and then added another one late, but he did turn over the ball 3 times in that matchup. But Bo Nix, on the other hand, a dominant outing, did not turn the ball over, got another touchdown on the ground, and the Broncos' upset victory over the Bucs. So, Ryan, what did you see from the 2 first-rounders, Caleb and Bo.
Yeah, for the first time, I thought that Sean Payton in Denver did Bo Nix favors and helped him have success early on. And I was talking with our coworker Wes about this. He's a Broncos fan. They're banged up on the secondary in Tampa Bay, so they played a lot of off coverage. Bo Nix took what he was given. 1, 2, 3, ball out. We saw this all day, and this is a great ball down the field, getting Josh Reynolds involved. Cortland Sutton started making plays, and so this was good to see. This looked like Oregon Bo Nix, and necessitated him being the 12th overall pick, the 6th quarterback taken in this draft. So this was his best game, his cleanest game. You saw him use his legs here in the touchdown run. Had an opportunity to throw a touchdown pass. Cortland Sutton just caught it out of bounds. And on the other side with Caleb Williams, I wish I'd seen Shane Waldron, the new offensive coordinator, do more to set Caleb up for success. It felt like some of the decisions that he made, and Matt Eberflus talked about this morning, weren't in the best interest of Caleb in the moment. But I thought Caleb, when he threw on time, he's getting better. It was a tough game. He was clearly frustrated. I think Rome Odunze has some room to grow as they move him around the formation. But the arrow's pointing up on both players, and it's just you have to be patient, and that's tough to do when you throw these young quarterbacks out there, because you want what you saw last year in college. And unless you're C.J. Stroud, that ain't going to happen.
Yeah, patience, practicing patience. And patience also with my San Francisco 49ers.
Man.
I appreciate that, Ryan. Good looking out. Thanks so much. Well, CBS has 6 monster games on tap this Sunday. Aaron Rodgers and the Jets go for their 3rd straight win. Steelers and Vikings both looking to start 4-0. Yes, Steelers and Vikings. And Texans and Jaguars face off in an AFC South battle. Raiders and Browns both in need of bounce-back wins. And then those Chiefs hosting that hobbled Chargers team we were just talking about in our Game of the Week. Watch it live or stream on Paramount Plus and tune into HQ. Of course, we got the highlights and post-game reaction.